Hey gang, it's KR, King of D&D Homebrew, talking to you today about one of my favorite monster tropes, the lake monster. Because ever since I was a little kid, reading about the Loch Ness Monster, or the monster of Lake Champlain, or there's one down in Oklahoma, an octopus creature, always fascinated me. The idea that some lake you could go to, like in the U.S. with your parents and camping or whatever, and out there somewhere is this prehistoric beast, lurking, was always fascinating. And there's a reason these legends arise, because until there was scuba gear or diving belts, the lake underwater areas were completely unknown by people. They couldn't be explored, and they were mysterious. And you brought things up, fishermen, they're like, what the hell is this? Oftentimes the deep things would be all mutilated from the pressure changes. And there were legends of sea monsters. And you had legends of things like kelpies, nixies, the Nagas and the Asian cultures, dragons, which were said to live in lakes. And of course, lake monsters have evolved. The original kelpies were said to look like horses or whatever. The Loch Ness Monster had different descriptions. Then with the discovery of dinosaur fossils, the 18th and 19th century, they started to look like dinosaurs, right? Some remnant cut off in the loch. And so a mythology arises from lakes because people live around them. People all through history have used them as a source for food, for sustenance, water, and yet the mysterious parts of this, and things go bad, what's happening, rights are enacted or whatever, have we offended the lake creature, that sort of thing. And of course, the beauty of a D&D setting is monsters are real. So I'm going to talk about some ideas as to why a monster might be in a lake, but also why the inhabitants of a lake might fake it, because I'm going to divide this into the real lake monsters and then reasons that the locals would, this is sort of the Scooby-Doo version. Some locals have a reason to spread the myth of a lake monster for their own gain. And an important note here in terms of the realism of having a actual monster in a lake in your campaign. One of the reasons that scientists, among many others, said that like the Loch Ness couldn't support a plesiosaur or whatever, a large reptile, was it just didn't have enough fish. There wasn't enough area there for them to feed. They needed an ocean type environment. So when you're creating a lake with a monster in it, you may think, I got to make this big. It's got to be, let's say one of the Great Lakes or something, or at least, 10 miles long or whatever. You can certainly do that. And it seems realistic to not just have, a pond or a small lake support a monster. But of course, you don't have to worry about that. And you can have this lake could be connected to some other body of water through underground chambers or whatever. It could be sustained by magical power. So just a note here, I wouldn't worry too much about the realism. I would tend to make the lakes a couple hexes. I have 6 mile hexes just to support that. So one of the questions you want to answer when creating a lake monster is, why is it there? The easiest is just its natural habitat. That's where it evolved, or, eggs were brought by birds or something, and there is this population of them, and they have the adequate fish, and they just live there. And then the people that live along this lake know about it, and, boats are sunk or whatever, and especially if it's connected to something like a canal where the boats could have treasure on them or something like that. There's a reason people want to explore. They want to kill the monster and get its treasure. But it's not there for any particular reason except that's where it lives. And, you can relate that to, this is the breeding grounds, especially if there is a sea, a connection, underwater connection to some larger body of water. This is where they breed or something. It's kind of the same thing, but then they're only there at a certain time of year. And here I would say that these monsters, let's say, are known to be out in the ocean, the deep ocean, and they'll attack ships and swallow them whole or something. So there might be treasure inside them. So then they're here at the breeding grounds at a certain time. The players find this out and decide, hey, let's get one of these. And you can do this as well with other creatures that, spawn or breed here, and there's a feeding season too for this kind of monster. But then we get more into our RPG setting reasons. So, for example, it's bound here by some curse, or it was created out of some transgression that the locals on this lake committed against some god. This is punishment for their sins. This is often related to every year they have to make a sacrifice, the Burning Man kind of thing. This would be in the water, right? And the players come across this, whether they want to stop this ceremony, whether they just become interested in what is this way. Maybe if there's a curse, something has to be done or rectified. And this monster is created to epitomize that curse. Some great god or demigod has created this creature, and it is inflicting their wrath upon the people that live on this lake. Another one that I have actually used for these kind of monsters is a magical experiment gone wrong. Typically, I'll have an island out in the middle of the lake. One of the Great Lakes to have this sort of setting, Crater Lake, it's not big enough to support a lake monster, but it has Wizard Island in the center. And I actually did a video from there when I was on a vacation. That wasn't about lake monsters, which is kind of interesting. But visiting that lake, of course, all I could think about was, oh my God, this would be it's a crater, right? But the point is, on this island, there was some wizard's tower, and they were conducting experiments. Something went wrong. This is where you start to get the Saugin-type creatures or something, but I'm going to stick with a monster, some hideous creature that was developed here or created. The wizard's long gone. Maybe it killed him, and now it, lurks in this lake. And this creature might have been created as a protection, a guard creature like the Wizard Island. You're not going to go out there on a boat with this thing swimming around, right? It's like a guard dog. And now the wizard is long gone and its descendants are in the lake. But it could also be protecting, say, a portal or something, or some magical device that's in the lake. Perhaps this device keeps the water fresh and pure or has magic qualities, but the wizard that created it, again, long gone, or whatever created it, wanted to protect that item. And the creature doesn't have to be brutish and animalistic. This is a RPG fantasy setting, right? It can have intelligence. And perhaps it's bound to the lake. Perhaps it wants to escape. Sent there by a geas, or it itself was cursed. Don't forget to give the monster a personality if you'd like to. Or maybe, the people have forgotten about it. The people that worshiped it, the religion is gone, and now it's just left there. And again, you can have a breeding population if you want, but you can have something that's magically sustained with a curse, a Geas type thing or something, where until it fulfills some destiny, it finds some worshiper, or they get some item that it can't get to, the players could get it, then it could be released. So you think about why this creature is there, whether or not it has an intelligence that would allow it to be aware of why it's there, or is it just some guardian thing that's just hunting for food? But whatever the case, that reason that it's there, then you build out your storylines from that idea and the relation of that storyline to the people that live around the lake. Because again, people will live on a lake. Now, the second one is kind of fascinating to me. In a world in which there are monsters and whatnot, that a populace, an NPC or a city or whatever would develop the idea of a monster and it doesn't live there. Why would you do that? As I said, the Scooby-Doo effect. Well, you're trying to deter people from going into this lake. So let's say that there are freshwater pearl beds in a lake that they're harvesting. They know where they are, and they have this legend of this monster such that it keeps people from, because you're not going to dive in there and try to find these pearl beds. So there's an economic reason for this. And again, the players have heard this, and they are called to this by someone who says, some NPC says, my so-and-so was on the lake and the sea monster got him. And look at this pearl that they had found. The sea monster got them, right? The players there's a monster with their pearls and you make them valuable. Or something else, gems from some volcanic eruption. Again, it's a fantasy thing. It's an RPG game, whatever you want. So the players go there and they're super warned off. I mean, this thing's deadly. It's presented as just being way over their capabilities. First of all, it's under the water. But again, if you have the island out in the center, that's where the gems, that's where my brother was, he was out there on this island and he found this gem and then he was killed by the monster. Okay, so then they go out there and it's not monsters at all. It's something, these people that are controlling this mine or whatever see them. You can have the fake monster if you'd like. But the point is that this would be the sort of thing that would keep people away. And there's other reasons besides simply an economic resource. There could be dark rites being conducted, whether it's on this island or the shores of this place, or the benevolent overlord and his little minions, right? And the monster is used to present a reason for why people are disappearing or why their mutilated bodies are being found, right? And so you're creating this, and the Baron, who's really, a worshiper of unholy rites, says to the players, oh, yes, if you can find anything out or whatever, they come to him. You wouldn't necessarily have them come, but when they do, the townspeople or whatever, some reason for them to come, and he creates this idea. Because the players are going to think, well, this is a fantasy setting, it's a monster, and might not suspect it. And that's what's so satisfying when they realize, wait a minute, this is a fake, this is not real. And again, the disappearing people, smuggling operations, you're either keeping people away so that you can conduct your illegal business, or you're blaming mysterious disappearances and deaths on this monster. It can also be something that's there to commemorate some event such that the people think it's fake. Again, now I'm going to get into this, a little bit twisted here. They think that this monster is just in honor of this dragon that, it had risen up and smote their enemies, or they smote the dragon and it's submerged in the lake. And they have this celebration every year. And let's say it's going to be the 500th anniversary or whatever. Well, in fact, the players find out that this dragon's just been slumbering. It's time for it to wake up. And they get evidence of that. Okay, so this is where they know that it's fake. They think it's all just a legend, but in fact, the players realize it's real. That's kind of cool. And this can relate in a fantasy setting of a monster which is used by the populace for tourism, to draw people in. It's this legendary monster. It's this historical place. People come. You're not going to get your picture taken in a typical fantasy setting, but you have a picture drawn of you on this lake. There are marionettes and puppets of this dragon or this great worm or whatever the creature is, and it just becomes like flavor. Except, again, whether the monster still exists or whether there's truth to this story that the players discover and they realize, there may have actually been, because something really happened. Now, again, it may have actually happened because we're in an RPG fantasy setting. But the point is, we think perhaps it's just a legend. No one really knows it's true. It's just celebrated. The players come and get involved, and they find out that it's something more. So, of course, I want to thank all my Patreon supporters. I really appreciate you guys helping me keep this channel alive. This week, for my night supporters, I'm going to be creating a PDF of some lake monsters that I've created. I'll give them some stats. I'm going to do a 5e Pathfinder and 1e equivalent. So if you're playing some other system, you'll have to. The OSR ones are pretty easy to adapt to any system. Just some ideas I have and varying levels of some cool lake monsters. And then my Duke supporters get the PDF, but they're also going to get a video. And then my video, I'm going to talk about some of the things I talked about. Why is a monster there? Why is a populace there? And flesh that out a little more and give ideas about, well, if this was really happening, if you really had this lake monster, how would it impact the community that lives there, what they think about the world, or if it's fake, if it's being used for some reason, or somewhere in between? What are some ideas to make that verisimilitude of that place real? And if you like what you've seen on my channel, I would love to have you subscribe. I'd love to hear stories about lake monsters you've created. But most importantly, keep playing an RPG game, whichever one you choose. Tell somebody else about it.